So a tranche of files have been released from you could say, the Epstein case, so the Ghislane Maxwell case dealing with the Epstein files. These files come from a 2015 civil action brought against Maxwell by Virginia Giuffre. Now, she is the one who claimed that they lured her into basically, or turning her into quote unquote, a sex slave. Now, the documents that are released by the judge, I think it was last night or the night before last, are mind blowing. Now, they give you this peek on what's going on behind the scenes, and the catch becomes whatever it is and how much of it is true. In either case, I know Prince Andrew looked guilty as sin, and I know Epstein is guilty, and Ghislane Maxwell, if she was indeed his fixer, then she is also guilty. And to see the people that were working around them, the people that were in their orbit, it's really, really interesting, especially considering what we know of Maxwell's apex international pedophile vibe that he had going on. I want to go through some of the most interesting, let's say, claims that are in the lawsuit or that was revealed by the documents themselves. And I'll show you in the documentation. This is Technofog. Technofog is a lawyer who's on Twitter who did a ton of work piecing through these legal documents in order to bring out the most interesting cases. So I'm going to review basically Technofog's work. Interesting, mind-blowing. We see shadows on the wall without necessarily knowing exactly what's there. The fact that Epstein was offed in prison, or offed himself, or whatever, and the fact that they're treating Ghislane Maxwell like this now, like shuffling her from cell to cell, having her paper clothing so she can't necessarily kill herself. Well, the question becomes, how much does Ghislane Maxwell know? And is Ghislane Maxwell willing to talk in order to save herself? And for that matter, is she even protected under the deal that Acosta made with Epstein? These are questions that would need to be asked within the context of the criminal case. But if nothing else, let's go through the revelations that have come forward in the documents that have been released. Welcome. Early morning, all night, soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you for allowing me to do so. My wife and I I always like to say I don't necessarily trust Google. And having them shut down my site for the last week gets across why. Let's go through this, though. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I do want to go through some of the documents. So this Technofog, and these are the documents that have been released. Now, Alan Dershowitz does not look good in this. Bill Clinton does not necessarily look good in this. So I'll show you what I mean. So Epstein also sexually trafficked them, Jane Doe, number 3, making her available for sex for the politically connected and financially powerful people. The politically connected and financially powerful people identified by Edwards and Cassell by name in the joint motion as having had sexual relations with Jane Doe number 3, or Prince Andrew, Duke of York, Prince Andrew, Miss Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Alan Dershowitz. Let's keep going. Where did you all have sex with the owner of a large hotel chain in France around the time of Naomi Campbell's birthday party? Now, this would mean that it's international. Because the moment that you're having a conversation, you're talking about something that's taking place on American soil, that's one thing. But now they're in a completely different country where this is taking place. And if Virginia Giuffre is correct, this would basically be taking a minor outside of the country to have sex. So let's see. In his own cabana townhouse thing, it was part of the hotel, but I wouldn't call it a hotel. Jeffrey was staying there. Ghislane was staying there. Emmy was staying there. I was staying there. This was the other guy staying there. I don't know his name. I was instructed by Ghislane to go to his room and give him an erotic massage. She used the words erotic massage. No, that's my word. Massage is what they would use. That's their code word. Meaning the moment that they said massage, it was always assumed to be an erotic massage. That's her point. Now that one was taking place in France. Here's another one, Dershowitz. Now Dershowitz is interesting here because basically Dershowitz is implicated in the sexual relations. And on top of being implicated in the sexual relations, he's also the person who supposedly wrote the NPO, the non-prosecutorial agreement. Which means that the agreement that he wrote basically protected him, supposedly after having sex with a minor. I hope you understand how weird that is. And let me make sure I explain that right. Dershowitz supposedly was involved. Now Dershowitz says, I had nothing to do with this. It wasn't me. I was clean. Fair enough. But Dershowitz is being implicated in being involved in this. On top of being involved in this, the claim is that Dershowitz, after having sex with a minor, turned around and wrote a plea deal to ensure that he was not implicated in any of the charges and that he was basically hidden out of this. So right here. Epstein required Jane Doe number 3 to have sexual relations with Dershowitz on numerous occasions while she was a minor, not only in Florida but also on private planes in New York, New Mexico, and the Virgin Islands. In addition to being a participant in the abuse of Jane Doe number 3 and other minors, Dershowitz was an eyewitness to sexual abuse of many other minors by Epstein and several Epstein co-conspirators. Dershowitz would later play a significant role, right here. Dershowitz will later play a significant role in negotiating the NPA on Epstein's behalf. Indeed, Dershowitz helped negotiate an agreement that provided immunity from federal prosecution in Southern District of Florida, not only to Epstein, but also any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, NPA Act 5. Thus, Dershowitz helped to negotiate an agreement with provision that provided protection for himself against criminal prosecution in Florida for sexual abusing Jane Doe number 3. Because this broad immunity would have been controversial if disclosed, Dershowitz, along with the other members of Epstein defense team and the government, tried to keep the immunity provision secret from all of Epstein's victims and the general public, even though such secrecy violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Interesting point for this. It does violate the act. Now, the judge originally who oversaw this and said, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. The victims in this case had a right to know of what you came up with in regards to a settlement. Now, the first judge rolled back partial of this. The secondary judge who came back after the appeal basically said, well, no. The victims weren't in any way adversely affected by this deal, so this deal in full still applies. So the deal that Dershowitz helped to negotiate may protect Dershowitz if indeed you find out that Dershowitz did something wrong. Ghislane Maxwell even invoked this very specific provision, basically saying anybody that was in association with Epstein at the time is cleared of charges. Well, part of her argument was this. The NPA says you can't go after me. You can't take a second bite at the apple. Here's the other one. Bill Clinton. When you say, you ask him, why is Bill Clinton here? What was on the island? Right, on the island. When you were present with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton on the island, who else was there? Ghislane, Emmy, and 2 young girls I could identify. I never really knew them well. Anyways, it was just 2 girls from New York. And were all of you staying at Jeffrey Epstein's house on the island, including Bill Clinton? That's correct. He has 4 or 5 different villas on the island, separate from the main house, and all of us stayed in the villas. Were sexual orgies a regular occurrence at the island and Jeffrey Epstein's house? Yes. Now, the issue is not the orgies. The issue is that the orgies involved children. If it was just orgies, I would applaud him. We need more love in this world. But this is just pedophilia. There's a vast, vast difference. Ghislane Maxwell says she hadn't talked to Epstein anytime soon. Well, emails are basically saying that's not true. Epstein instructs Maxwell on how to deny the allegations. Epstein tells Maxwell she had, quote unquote, done nothing wrong, quote unquote, go to parties, deal with it. Basically, this is how you need to engage the public and deal with the charges that are being leveled against you. Jeffrey Epstein sent to Ghislane. Since Jeffrey Epstein was charged in 2007 for solicitation of a prostitute, I've been the target of outright lies, innuendos, slander, defamation, and salacious gossip and harassment. Headlines made up of quotes I've never given, statements I've never made, trips with people and places I've never been, holidays with people I've never met, false allegations of impropriety and offensive behavior that I abhor and have never been party to, witness to events that I have never seen, living off trust funds that I've never even had, party to stories that have changed materially, both in time, place, and events, or event, depending on the paper that you read. And the list goes on. I have never been a party in any criminal activity pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, with me, you've done nothing wrong, and I would urge you to start acting like it. Go outside, head high, not as an escaping convict. Go to parties, deal with it. I had Lisa Svensson, Swedish ocean ambassador, yesterday. She said no one on her ocean panel takes this stuff seriously, and you would be welcome to the Ocean Conference Water Conference. What? You will be welcome to the Ocean Conference Water Conference. Okay, that sounds weird. Basically, the notion that they weren't communicating goes out the window at that point. FBI. The FBI knew about this a lot earlier and didn't do anything about it. The FBI has some explaining to do. So this is right here. The limited information produced by iCloud account shows the responsive information exists. The production includes plaintiff's communication with the FBI agent Jason Richards in 2014, and plaintiff was in regular communications with him at various times, particularly in mid-2014. Despite this, few pieces of correspondence with agent Richards have been produced. Plaintiff also produced an email to Christy Pylor of the FBI, but not any response. The FBI was in contact with Epstein and Ghislane Maxwell's victim back in 2014. Here's the other part. The victim was contacting the FBI. Hi, Christina. I was wondering if you remember me from Sydney Consulate. I'm a victim of the investigation from Epstein case and was wondering if you could tell me if I would be able to get a hold of any of the pics or videos the FBI might have confiscated from Epstein's residence. This is a child trying to get evidence from the FBI that the FBI does have in her civil suit against Epstein. And these pictures, the FBI had going all the way back to 2011, apparently. I'm just asking you if there's a document that you know of that has name on the list. Not in front of me, no. Where is the original of the photograph that has been widely circulated in the press of you with Prince Andrews? I probably still have it. It's not. Let's see. Did the photograph ever leave your possession? I gave it to the FBI. Okay. When did you get it back? When they took copies of it. When was that? 2011. When they came to interview you. Yes. That means the FBI had that picture going all the way back to 2011 of her and Prince Andrew. The questions that were being asked were basically to try to have a civil suit and get the information from the FBI in order to do so. And here's another one. Epstein victim describing the abuse. All right, that's fine. And again, I'm not implying by my questions, nor do I want your answers to be interpreted as suggesting that any of those people that you have just identified were engaged in any proper activities on any particular flight. But I want you to talk about now about what went on indications while you're on the airplane, okay? Okay, it was a lot of the same that went down on the ground. A lot of times it would just be me and Jeffrey, or me and Jeffrey and Ghislane, or me and Jeffrey and some other girl, sometimes Emmy, Sarah, and Nadia Jerknick. There would be sexual conduct. There would be a foreplay. There was a bed in there, so we could basically reenact exactly what was happening in the house. It would start off with massaging, or we would start off with foreplay. Sometimes it would lead to, orgies. And this part, apparently the FBI knew about Epstein going all the way back to 2008. Emails between Marie, Robert, Jeff Sloman, Karen Nesboig, etc., etc. The grand jury, due to a failure to receive a decision from D.C., status of the grand jury presentation and ongoing investigation, staffing for the purpose of the trial, and meeting to prepare the grand jury. Basically, they knew about Epstein going all the way back for a while. Main Justice was helping run the Epstein case and even delayed the grand juries. Think about that. The D.C. Department of Justice was helping run the Epstein case, and they were involved in delaying the grand juries. Also, 2 more points. At the time where Epstein signed his plea deal, the FBI and the DOJ knew it had not interviewed all of the victims. This case was screwed up from rooter to tutor. And people who say, oh, those are conspiracy theories that are being brought up from this case, I'm sorry, the case creates them themselves. People aren't necessarily crazy for it. One of the other cases that came up was Prince Andrew was basically lobbying on behalf of Epstein for a lesser charge. Lobbying the government of the United States for a lesser charge. A lesser charge, mind you, for something that he himself is implicated in, just like Dershowitz. Look, these leaks are profound. I mean, the fact that the FBI knew about Epstein in 2008, it says Main Justice, D.C. Department of Justice was helping run the Epstein case and even delayed the grand juries. Wow. I'll put the link to this at the bottom so you can go through Technofog stuff yourself. Technofog has done an awesome job kind of cataloging this stuff. But, disturbing. And beyond the point of being disturbing, just weird, and some of the things that took place in this particular case that if it was anybody else would in no way be allowed. How many people do you know would have a prince from Britain pushing for a lesser charge? How many people you know, for that matter, would be able to get a provision, an NPA, a non-prosecutorial agreement, that basically covers pedophilia from multiple people and doesn't even talk to all of the victims to get a clear idea on the kind of deal that has taken place? It was almost just to sweep it under the rug. Whatever happens with Ghislane Maxwell will be very, very interesting, and all eyes are going to be on that particular trial. Amir Farir, the folks at Hard Lens Media want to have you on their show. I'd go on Hard Lens. I'm not opposed to it. Hard Bastard was always nice to me when I first started, and that matters. But yeah, I'm not against it. I'm here. All right, guys. Like, share, and subscribe.